So, got some interesting racing this Saturday. Big card at Gulfstream. We got the Fountain of Youth Stakes card. We got a lot of stakes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 stakes races. 8 of them graded. West Point's got a horse in the only non-graded stakes, the Colonel Liam Stakes. We've got Cugino running. He was a nice first out winner at Aqueduct. Ran second last time. We were thinking of running him on an allowance, but these kind of there's 3-year-old stakes, the turf stakes, and the allowances. They're like pretty similar competition this time of year. So good luck to Cugino. We have 8 grade stakes races highlighted by the Fountain of Youth Stakes, which is the last race, the 14th race on the card. Grade 2. $400,000 purse. I think, to me, all eyes will be on, not all eyes, because Locked is in the race as well. Locked was a grade 1 winner as a 2-year-old for Todd Pletcher. But there are 2 horses coming out of, probably the highest graded race for 3-year-olds so far this year that wasn't a stakes. You got Victory Avenue and Speakeasy. Speakeasy got a 100 buyer. Victory Avenue got a 97 buyer in the January 27th second race. I believe that was the Pegasus undercard. I'm always curious to see how these horses run back when you got a bunch of first-time starters running huge figures in the same race. But there was a horse who ran, I believe, 4th or 5th in that race who came back to win for Shug on Saturday at Gulfstream. So I'm going to be curious to see how those two do, stepping up in class in a big way. Obviously, I mentioned Locked is in the race, but also Dornock, who was flattered. He beat Sierra Leone in the Remsen in that race where he improbably came back to win by a nose. This will be his 3-year-old debut for Danny Gargan, son of Good Magic, half brother or full brother to Mage. So it'll be interesting to see how he does in his first race off of the bench. Lots of great action. John, I'm curious, you mentioned that Hades is going to skip this race and head to the Florida Derby. Is that just a spacing thing? Like what was the decision making in that?
Without giving away any company secrets, Joe, basically it was a couple of factors. Number one, Hades is a big, lanky horse, and we know we're going to be campaigning him against hopefully the best of the best this spring and summer. So at some point in time, we wanted to give him a little bit of break just to be able to gain some weight and kind of fill in a little bit. So we felt like that this was the time to do it. It was a little quick back off of the Holy Bull. Not to say that we couldn't have made both of them, but I don't think any of the horses from the Holy Bull, maybe one, maybe the outside horse, Dancing Groom, was the only one that actually opted to spin back into this race after 4 weeks. So I think people are taking it a little cautious. Our goal with the horse is to run him in the Florida Derby and then hopefully the Kentucky Derby and then another race, and then hopefully, Joe, if everything breaks right, the Haskell, because it's our backyard derby. Quite frankly, we've never entered a horse in the Haskell. Not that we didn't have horses that were decent enough to run in there, but we always said, my mom when she was alive and Dad and I have always said, we're not going to run a horse in the Haskell unless we think that he's got a chance to win, and we're hoping that Hades is that horse. The other thing that's interesting that I didn't even realize, actually, the breeder brought to my attention, is that if we run him, being Hades, in the Florida Derby and he wins the Florida Derby, there's an extra $200,000 bonus pool for Florida breds. That if you win the Florida Derby, you get, depending on how many other horses hit the board, Florida breds hit the board, you get a significant amount of that $200,000 bonus. Which let's just say he wins and he gets the majority of the $200,000 bonus. That's like winning another $300,000 stake race, quite frankly. It is the way that we're looking at it. So we wanted to give him a little time. We wanted to give him a chance to develop. There's an incentive program, to win the Florida Derby. And the timing of it is just the right amount of time for us. We didn't want to, not that it was a mistake at the time, Joe, with Helium, but we did a couple of years ago where he won the Tampa Bay Derby, and then we gave him 7 weeks off until the Kentucky Derby. And he ran his race, but he still ran 5th or 6th. It was just too much time. So we didn't want to have that break go from, the Fountain of Youth to the Kentucky Derby and try to get him, up to speed against those horses. Honestly, looking at the race right now with 2020, hindsight, I'm glad we didn't run in this race, because this is a salty group. I mean, not that we're dodging anybody. We ran against the 2-year-old champion, last time out. But, you talk about Speakeasy, they ran 100 buyer. And what was really impressive about Speakeasy's win is that he broke from the 1 hole in almost a full field. And it's hard enough to get, a young horse to win first time out of the box, to win from the rail and having to, move up, not break on top and move up the rail and keep your position. But to me, 7 furlongs is the most daunting distance for a young horse. It's not a sprint, and it's not a distance race where you can have a little bit of time to give a break. So 7/8 is a really tough distance to accomplish first time out. But and there's not one but 2 horses, as you mentioned, in this race, the Coolmore Fountain of Youth, that ran in that race, first and second. Dornoch, how about this for a breeding program? Puka, who's a big brown mare, already had Mage. You mentioned the Kentucky Derby winner, and now has Dornoch, who's the Remsen winner, Grade 2 winner, beat Sierra Leone, who's arguably the going to be the favorite as of now in the Kentucky Derby field, and Locked is kind of like the redheaded stepchild. And all he did, as you mentioned, is won a Grade 1 as a 2-year-old and as a gun runner. And people aren't even really talking about him as much as they are about the ones that we mentioned previously. So it is a salty race. And again, not that we're dodging anybody at this stage of the game, because there aren't any easy races per se for these preps, but this one came up exceedingly tough.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like in the Holy Bill, it was really just fierceness. That was the only horse really to be worried about. And this race, he got like 4 horses who have run big figures or one big races. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's a lot to get around in here. So it's going to be a great capper to a great card. But we got some other action across the country. This Saturday is the big cap card, Santa Anita Handicap, the Frank Kilroe Mile, both Grade 1s, as well as the San Felipe Grade 2. I believe we're going to have Scatify running that race. So fingers crossed for him. And then the Grade 2 Buena Vista Stakes, which is on turf as well. And not to be outdone, I'm going to be at Aqueduct on Saturday for the Gotham. See, I got the hat on. We got Slider. Who he ran 3rd to Muth last time out in the San Vicente. We're going to stretch him out a little bit. We wanted a 1-turn mile. John Sadler does not ship east all that often, unless it's for a Breeders' Cup or a Kentucky Derby, but he thinks that he wants to gradually step him up in distance, and there's no 1-turn mile races at Santa Anita. So he's coming to my neck of the woods at Aqueduct, sunny Aqueduct on Saturday. So best of luck to the West Point partners and to Slider. I'm hoping he pops out of there and can go wire to wire, because I'm also a big fan of him personally. He's a really, really sweet, really smart horse. So I'm looking forward to seeing him on Saturday. So we got the Gotham, the Tom Fool, the Stymie, and the Busher Stakes on Saturday at Aqueduct. So yeah, things are heating up, John. We're getting closer to the Derby all the time. Obviously, that's how the calendar works, but it feels like it's speeding up a little bit as we hit the end of February and the beginning of March. It'll be here before you know it. So yeah, best of luck to all the West Point partners and this Saturday, and can't wait for it as a horse player either.
And Joe, can we just talk about one other prep? And it just it scratches my head. The John Battaglia. How is that race Kentucky Derby points? How can they give Kentucky Derby points to a race that is not even on the same surface as the Kentucky Derby, Preakness, and Belmont?
Well, I mean, didn't Animal Kingdom come out of the Spiral Stakes and win the Derby?
He's the one, I think, that's come out of this race.
Rich Strike.
Jeff Ruby.
Wasn't Rich Strike also? Didn't he come out of the Turfway races?
I thought he came out of the Churchill Downs races, but I could be wrong. But I guess I don't have a good point then.
Right.
I just don't understand how that race can be a points race, other than the fact that it's in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. But it doesn't, and we race at Turfway. It's not a knock against Turfway. I think it's a great racetrack, especially for winter racing. You know what you're getting. You're getting a really solid surface. You don't have to really worry about the weather too much unless it gets super cold, and that that surface gets a little cloddy, I guess, is for lack of a better term. But I look at the Battaglia, and I look at the Gotham, and I look at the Fountain of Youth, and even the race that the Rebel that ran last week, and it's like no comparison. There's not one horse in my opinion, in the Battaglia that would go into any of those other races and be anything but a double-digit odds.
Yeah. That's why I didn't mention it, but John wants to mention it just to trash the race.
No, it's not even the trash. I just don't. Again, in the fine tweaking of this wonderful industry that we know as thoroughbred racing, that's a question mark to me as to why. If you want to say, hey, the Jeff Ruby, because it's a lot of money and because it's the proximity of when it is to the Derby. People can use it as a stepping stone. You brought up a couple of examples that I didn't think of. Maybe that one, but I don't understand how the Battaglia is a Derby prep.
Does that qualify for a B and John's bonnet graphic?
It's not enough to warrant it. I don't want to overuse the bee in the bonnet. I mean,
You're not buzzing completely about it.
No. That's a trump card that we want to play maybe once a quarter. When things really piss me off, kind of like you correcting me even though you're right, you correcting me on air.
That's what I'm here for, Brett.
Oh man! All right, the show's back to you.